6, 2018, baby. We are here. We are live. Welcome to Third Down, guys. I am your host, T. Wayne the Don, and we are back at it. And we got a lot to get caught up on, bro. Hey, look, the NBA playoffs, bro. I'm going to tell y'all something. We're going to talk about that. That's starting to get real interesting. I'll tell you why. The Eastern Conference, all 8 seeds are officially locked up. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. We also want to talk about the injury with Kyrie Irving with the Boston Celtics, how that's going to affect the playoffs as they are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Looking to the standings, Pelicans got a much-needed win the other day against the Memphis Grizzlies. That was real needed after sliding 4 straight losses. Now they take on tonight the Phoenix Suns on the road. They're going to come back Saturday. They're going to play the Golden State Warriors, and they're going to wrap up the season against the San Antonio Spurs this Wednesday coming up. So that's a big one coming up for... Oh, actually, I forgot they played the Clippers before that as well. And then they're going to wrap up the season against the San Antonio Spurs this Wednesday at home to finish the season. Kind of important must-wins for the Pelicans. But the big news around the NFL, yes, the big news around the NFL has to be Robert Griffin. Robert Griffin has re-signed in the NFL. Yes, sir, that is the big news. Now, granted, I know I am foolish. I know that's not the big news of the league, but the big news is that Brandin Cooks has been traded again. Back-to-back season, Brandin Cooks has been traded. What that means for Brandin Cooks, what for his young career, is he considered a top receiver in the game? But there's one thing I want to look at, and we will look at today. We're going to look at that receiving class. Remember, he came in with Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and all that. But there was 5 receivers that went in the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft. We're going to talk a little bit about that right now. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about the trade for Brandin Cooks. They did happen the other day. Cooks was traded for the 23rd overall pick from the Rams, and New England sent the 4th rounder to LA. So obviously LA is going for the title. Ain't no doubt about that. The Los Angeles Rams are going for a world title. No doubt. Can't tell me no different. So what does that mean to a degree? Well, let's talk about it. They were in contention for Odell Beckham a few weeks ago. Last couple of weeks, their name's been kind of mentioned with Odell Beckham. Now, all of a sudden, since they got Brandin Cooks, they officially pulling their names out the hat of the Odell Beckham drama. You know what I'm saying? Because they did want Odell. Now, you give Cooper Kupp, you give Jared Goff a solid little core with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, I think Tavon Austin is staying. Then you still got TG. You got TG30. He's still back there in the backfield. I mean, that offense is pretty solid. When you look at the Rams right now, the Rams are kind of an ultimate team on defense, but they're pretty solid on offense. Got a lot of working pieces with the LA Rams, to be honest with you. I kind of like what they're doing. Remember, just a few years ago, they couldn't sell out for nothing. And now they went from year 2, they went to a playoff team. And to now, they're potentially thinking about winning the championship this year. Can't say that the Rams haven't significantly improved in a matter of 2 years since they've been in California. So you got to give the Rams their credit on that. But let's talk about what the Rams, in my opinion, started to get compared to. Remember a few years ago when the Eagles signed Nnamdi Asomugha, they signed Vince Young, they had Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson was still at the prime of his career, they had Shady McCoy, they had some pieces that year where they were starting to consider themselves as the dream team of the NFL. I want to say for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, they went undefeated. They was 4-5-0. I remember they lost in Atlanta when Michael Vick went down with the injury, when he returned back to Atlanta. And so many different personalities. It wound up after Vick went down, it blew up in the Philadelphia Eagles' face. Like they could never shake back from that. So it makes me kind of wonder. There's a lot of personalities on this team. You got Marcus Peters. You have Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib. You have, especially on that defense, when a young coach is Sean McVay, he got to find a way to make all these personalities work and come together on one accord. Because the Rams, when you think about on paper, The LA Rams, to me, on paper, are the best team in the NFC. Ain't no doubt about it. They are the NFC West champions. They're the number one seed in the NFC. They are a 13-3 football team. They at least win the first 4 or 5 games to open the season, on paper, hands down. I don't know what their schedule look like yet, but when you look at the talent perspective that is on that NFL roster right now, they are the best team in the NFC to start the year. Ain't no doubt about it. You got all pros. You have Pro Bowlers. You have a number of things that can at least give you a chance to win a world title. Ain't no doubt about it. But could you have so many different personalities on the team where the team can go from 13-3 to potentially 6-10, 5-11? Just having too many egos. It's either going to work or it's going to blow up. It's going to backfire on them. Having too many different egos in LA. I would like to be honest with you. I mean, granted, I'm a Saints fan. I want the Saints to win as many games as they can, and the Rams actually do come to New Orleans this year. I know that for a fact. I mean, I don't want to see it work as a Saints fan. I really don't want to see it work because I'm a Saints fan. But I'm not going to be biased. When you have that much talent, you know what the deal is. When you have all this type of all-pro, NFL all-pro type guys as on that defensive side of the ball, you have to respect that. It can happen, It definitely can happen. This team has a chance to be the best team in the NFL next year. Who's going to run on this team? Who's going to stop this team on defense? Now, granted, here's my thing with Brandin Cooks. Now, going into his 5th year in the NFL, he played his first 3 seasons with the Saints. Second and third year, he had 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard years. Then he goes to New England. He has another 1,000-yard year. He has 7 touchdowns last year. Will Brandin Cooks ever, and I guess to a degree, he was probably looking for a good deal. I think he kind of wanted that in New Orleans as well. But New Orleans decided to move on, which is not a bad decision now. You look at, granted, they don't have a true second receiver. Your running back, Alvin Kamara, is probably your best receiver behind Michael Thomas, but you don't have a true second receiver. But at the end of the day, they still went to the playoffs. They still got the job done without Brandin Cooks. Where do you rank Brandin Cooks in the NFL when it comes to as a receiver? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about guys whose young talents that's taken it to the next level, like DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green always been a dog. It's like Mike Evans is another guy who's taking his game, who could take his game to the next level. Where do you put Brandin Cooks to a degree? Because to me, Brandon, he wants to be truly a number one. There's no doubt in my mind he wants to be a number one. Don't put up truly productive number one numbers. He cracks 1,000 yards, but he don't really it's like, because sometimes there's been over the past that they compare him more to Antonio Brown, but he don't put up Antonio Brown numbers. Now, to a degree, I think this is probably the best chance to prove he's a stud at receiver because he's not playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback. You start your first 3 years, you playing with Drew Brees, Hall of Famer. Then you play with the 5-time world champion in Tom Brady, Hall of Famer. You're going after 1 year. So now you got to go play with a third-year player, somebody that's on your level to a degree. And this I also read that the Rams are considering trying to pick up his options to keep him there for the following seasons. Will it work? I think it will work. Now he got to reprove himself and be like, I am an elite of elite. Because let's go back to that 2014 draft class. Y'all remember Clowney went number 1 and Blake Bortles was in that class? There was 5 wide receivers that won that class in 2014. There was 5 of them. Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Brandin Cooks, and Kelvin Benjamin. That's how it went in that order. Remember, Watkins went first. He was big coming out of Clemson. Mike Evans had a big year with Johnny Manziel when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy. Then Odell came after he went to the Giants. He fell to New York. And then here comes the Saints drafted up to go get Brandin Cooks. And Kelvin Benjamin went to Carolina. Do you know out them 5 receivers that 3 of the 5 have been moved already? 2 of the 5 is already on their third team in a matter of 5 seasons. Can you name me the 2? Well, I can name you the 2. Sammy Watkins was traded early to start the season that went to the Rams, and guess what? He's now on the Kansas City Chiefs now. That's his third team. Brandon Cook started the year off with the New England Patriots, got knocked out in the first half in the Super Bowl. Guess what? Now he's an LA Ram, third team. Kelvin Benjamin was traded mid-season, went to the Buffalo Bills, second team. Odell Beckham is on the block list to a degree to be on his second team if he don't get his act together. You know, out them 2 of the 5 receivers, there's only been two of them went to the Pro Bowl. You would think, to a degree, you would think. Of course, Odell's one of them. There's no doubt about that one. But you would think that maybe Sammy or maybe Kelvin Benjamin would have went to the Pro Bowl. No, Mike Evans, who played with the probably out of all of them, played with the least amount of time a quarterback play. No disrespect to Jameis Winston, but at the end of the day, Mike Evans is a Pro Bowl wide receiver in the NFL. Kind of strange, huh? So that makes me wonder, when you go back and look at that draft class, did a lot of teams get it right that year looking at receivers? I don't think they did. Especially when you look at Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy Watkins got to really prove himself this season with the Kansas City Chiefs and really show that he's still the man. He can still be a productive player in the NFL, especially going to play with Pat Mahomes. Kind of get Pat Mahomes some help with Travis Kelce. You know, you're going to give him some help. The man needs some help. I think if Brandon Cooks don't get it right in L.A., if L.A. don't give him that extension, I will go to Kansas City because I think you will really help Pat Mahomes and you will help Travis Kelce. And you will help Sammy Watkins. You just can't look for a payday. So here's my question to you guys. When you think about Brandon Cooks, what receivers that have played in the past in the NFL do you compare him to? And the guy that came to my mind, now granted, this guy don't have the speed like Brandon, but he did everything right when it was time to do it right. I find Brandon does that well. Is Wes Welker. Small, undersized guy. He makes plays when it's necessary. He's a Pro Bowler. I think Brandon Cooks eventually will be a Pro Bowl receiver because the numbers don't lie. He's a Pro Bowler. He make plays when it's time. I just think that it's a lot, man. It's honestly a lot that he has to continue to get better at in his game. You know, one thing I remember a few years ago. The Saints, Drew Brees didn't play. I think that was week 3 of the season. The Saints went down, took a ride to Carolina, and Luke McCown started. And Luke McCown actually had a great day. He just didn't throw no touchdown pass. It came down to a 50-50 ball in the right side of the right corner in the end zone. And it was Josh Norman and Brandon Cooks. And Brandon just didn't have, Norman had more of the height advantage over Brandon, It probably wasn't the best read, but it was a good throw. Now, that was Michael Thomas out there with a 50-50 ball. That ball wouldn't be intercepted. That ball would probably be caught or incomplete because he would have fought for it. Brandon wasn't that type of guy to go get up that 50-50 ball. Now, he made a lot of plays in traffic, but that was more of a 50-50 ball. He didn't come through at the end of the game to give the Saints the win. So, it's a lot, man. It's honestly a lot. I want to see him continue to develop. I don't hope that this don't knock his game, but he's not up there of the elite of the elites to me. And he wants to get paid like an elite of the elite. He's a great receiver. He causes a lot of confusion on defenses. You have to be responsible for it or he's going to be behind the secondary. That's the type of receiver he is. But I don't think that he's going to get the respect that he wants and the money he wants in a payday. But he got to humble himself. Something that he didn't do in New Orleans too well. Once Michael Thomas started to take off a little bit to a degree, he really didn't humble himself. He wanted to really be the man. So Sean Payton let him walk. Belichick didn't want to pay him. Obviously, you saw that. But let's talk about Belichick and the New England Patriots. So now they get the 23rd pick and they got the 31st pick in NFL draft. Something that the Patriots